Project Bluebeam. It was it's essentially
a Bluebeam.
It was
sorry, yeah.
It was research that was released by SERGE MONAST in the 1990s. Incidentally, a few weeks after he released the information, he died mysteriously of a heart attack. But basically, Project Bluebeam is essentially the idea that there was going to hoax something on the size of a biblical second coming, and it would start off with an engineered financial crash. And it was going to end up spiraling into environmental problems, hoax discoveries around the world that throw religion into contradiction, like, for instance, the lost tomb of Jesus. And then from that, it was going to essentially get to the point where people were hearing the voice of God in each other's heads. So, for instance, you talk about suicide bombers who are saying they've been hearing the voice of God. Is this technology that's doing this stuff?
Yeah.
But basically, they're referring to hearing the voice of God in one's head, and then to top it all off, they were going to, project massive imagery, or whatever you want to call it, onto the upper ionosphere of the Earth to, essentially recreate something on the scale of a biblical second coming or an alien invasion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long document, and you can find it on the internet if you search for it, and you'll find that a lot of what's written, and I think it was written back in 1992, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is essentially coming true. There's a lot of it on there that you could put a tally next to. But basically, as I was saying, going into the Project Bluebeam stuff, and you start thinking to yourself, have they got the technology to do this, to do what they say they're going to do? And for instance, this is just like one angle. There's multiple angles where I found weird synchronicities. But for instance, if you look into 3D holographic technology, and I basically discovered that the very first public display of 3D holographic technology was in the worldwide stage production of War of the Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you remember that War of the Worlds, this was going around all the arenas in the world, essentially, like Australia, in Britain, in America.
Mm-hmm.
But War of the Worlds was obviously read out on the radio in the very early 1900s. And the population of England believed that an alien invasion was actually taking place when it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's basically, a false flag alien invasion, if you want to call it that, when it was read over the radio.
Mm.
But basically I started looking into, for instance, who were they actually, turning into a hologram during this War of the Worlds stage show. And basically this, the very first public demonstration of 3D holographic technology in the War of the Worlds, and they were using the actor Richard Burton to do this. And I don't know if you know about Richard Burton, but Richard Burton was also one of the main characters in the film 1984.
Really? No.
So do you know what I mean? You can draw this lineage from the very first use of public holographic technology to the film 1984 and to War of the Worlds.
Sorry to interrupt. I just got to mention also that because we were talking about Cleopatra and Caesar before, and Richard Burton actually plays the role of Marcus Antonius or Mark Anthony in Cleopatra, the movie. But anyway,
right. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Incidentally, for instance, if you was looking into the idea of have they got the technologies to beam the voice of God into someone's head, when I was particularly looking at this was probably about 4 months ago, so I can't quote it exactly. But there's an article appeared on the Guardian website, and it was in the Guardian newspaper as well, and it was referring to this advertising campaign that had started in New York City.
Yep.
And what was happening when people were walking down the street, and then they was hearing this voice in their head that said something like, "This isn't your imagination, this is real." And obviously people kept walking down this section of the street, and people getting pissed off. They were like, why on earth, is this thing happening in my head when I walk past this section of the street?
Yeah.
And one person was saying you could have this is invasion of privacy, because you could have, for instance, Nike beaming "just do it" into your head.
Oh yeah.
So what it turned out anyhow was that above on a billboard there was an advertisement for a TV show called Paranormal State, and behind it was a little black box that was shooting ultrasonics down to the ground.
Mm.
So when people were walking through this trigger area, there was having beams using ultrasonics into their head, this message. And I mean, incidentally, if you think about deaf kids, for instance, deaf children can go and swim with dolphins and they can hear them because the dolphins use ultrasonics.
Mm.
So this technology essentially probably could, allow deaf people to hear, because it's using ultrasonics like the dolphins.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I was looking into the company who did this advertising campaign on the Guardian website, and the company who did it was a company called Blue Blast Media. Right, so you've got Project Bluebeam, and then you've got this advertising company called Blue Blast Media.
Yeah.
Does that not sound very similar?
Oh, of course.
So I went and did a hunt on the internet as to Blue Blast Media, and you'd expect if it was a big advertising company that they would have this, fantastic website with this fantastic new technology they've got, and all they've got is one big logo. Almost like the company doesn't exist.
Yeah, as a front company or whatever.
Yeah.
Sending up signals.
I've got to make a post about that as well. As I say, I've never got the time to pull this stuff together, but I do my best.
Well, you're doing a great job here, and I also, of course, want to mention the obvious connection that the use of blue, or why they use the blue, blue color. I mean, this goes back to we could look at the blue in the flag of Israel. We can look at which connect with Zion, but more prominently, we can look at the Blue Lodge within Freemasonry, which this is very prominent within that. So
the blue ring in the Olympics, the blue Olympic mascot,
the water again, and all of that.
Yeah, everywhere you go, you'll find the blue.
We're going to take a break right here and continue talking more with Rick Clay in our members section. Don't forget to check out his blog, thecosmicmind.blogspot.com. Many more articles up there for you to dive into. We're going to continue talking more about Project Bluebeam, the potential fake alien invasion, and also how new weaponry and methods of advertisement literally can put voices in your head. We'll discuss the global coverage of the Wi-Fi system, the cell phone, and the Tetra masts that are going up everywhere. And more importantly, we'll also discuss the different levels of reality and much more in the member section.